Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
Say again, please.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at disasters and accidents that, against all odds, resulted in virtually no direct human fatalities.
Frozen at 2:46 p.m., the exact moment a massive earthquake struck northeastern Japan and led to one of the worst nuclear disasters of all time.
Delta Connection Flight 4819. They say it's statistically safer to fly than drive, although 2025 has seemingly provided a counter-argument.
Yeah, it happened pretty dang quick, and we were just upside down hanging from our seatbelts.
In barely a month, North America saw multiple US aviation accidents. Among them was a Delta flight from Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport to Toronto Pearson International Airport. The Bombardier CRJ-900LR crash-landed on February 17th, breaking into fragments.
This audio from air traffic control warned pilots of tricky conditions on the runway.
Yeah, slight bump in the glide path.
A bulk of the smoking plane was left upside down on the snowy runway, with the passengers aboard literally hanging on for dear life. As deadly as the crash looked from the outside, all 80 occupants, including 4 crew members, survived. More than 20 were injured, but compared to some of the accidents that occurred over the previous weeks, this was the best outcome possible for such a chaotic crash.
Officials say it is important things remain as they are so transportation officials can get a good understanding of exactly what happened. We have more than 20 personnel from the Transportation Safety Board, U.S. officials, someone from the plane manufacturer taking a look at things, trying to find some answers.
The Boscastle Flood. For the coastal English villages of Boscastle and Crackington Haven, August 16, 2004 is a day that still lives in infamy.
An intense and localised storm wrought havoc on one small corner of North Cornwall. The villages of Boscastle and Crackington Haven were the worst hit.
Both villages endured 8 hours of heavy rain, resulting in massive flash floods. Within 2 hours, these areas saw more than 60 millimeters of rainfall, about how much one would usually see in a month.
There was this huge bang, and all of a sudden the river started flooding, and it was literally in a matter of seconds. And within about 10 minutes, there was cars that were just floating downstream into the sea.
Survivors still have vivid memories of people being trapped on rooftops, cars being washed away, and entire structures being destroyed, amounting to an estimated 15 million English pounds in damages. Some can even smell and hear the storm decades later. Although animals were reportedly trapped in sinking cars, no humans lost their lives during the floods. This was one silver lining in an event with lasting consequences.
It's incredible to think that no one was badly injured or dragged out to sea by the sudden raging flood that caused so much devastation.
Rome, New York tornado. People usually welcome a little wind during the middle of July. This wasn't the case in 2024, when New York and New Hampshire saw 14 reported tornadoes.
This is what one of the strongest storms on record in Rome did to a brick wall. What stood for generations, gone in minutes, leaving people astonished at what was left behind.
The worst occurred in the Oneida County city of Rome. Commencing its rampage around the Erie Canal, the EF2 tornado raged through Rome to Griffiths Air Force Base. The storm was strong enough to move a B-52 bomber plane, with winds nearly reaching 80 miles per hour.
As many people know, not every tornado warning actually leads to a tornado. But in this case, you could see the debris on the radar. And once we had that, we knew that we were going to be on the ground assessing the damage on that.
Over 350 homes and several other structures, including 2 historic churches, faced significant damage. Despite the trail of destruction left behind, the citizens of Rome managed to ride out the storm with no casualties. Cleaning up the mess wouldn't be easy, but Rome wasn't built or rebuilt in a day.
There's so much gratitude that nobody here died. People of Rome are very aware of that, and that's helping them get through. But the people here are still mourning the loss of the city they once knew.
The Rim Fire. California is no stranger to wildfires. The Rim Fire of August 2013 is one still burned in many memories.
The fire is northeast of Groveland in the Stanislaus National Forest in Tuolumne County. It has closed a 4-mile stretch of Highway 120.
The disaster stemmed from a hunter who illegally made a campfire in Stanislaus National Forest. The ensuing wildfire wouldn't be limited to this forest, with the damage extending to Yosemite National Park, also part of the Sierra Nevada mountain range.
The Rim Fire, which has consumed more than 300 square miles since it began on August 17th, is burning near the Tuolumne and Merced groves on the western boundary of the park. More than 4,000 firefighters from around the country have been battling the intense blaze.
Covering more than 257,000 acres, the Rim Fire also destroyed 112 structures. Around $127 million went towards containing the fire, which lasted 8 days. Although thankfully no people died, 10 were injured in what was then the third largest wildfire in the state's history. Today, it's not even among California's 10 largest wildfires, showing how this issue has continued to grow in just over a decade.
I've fought fire from Alaska to Florida, from New England to California, and this is one of the toughest fights I've ever faced.
Andrianoff Islands earthquake. The Andrianoff Islands are part of the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. In March 1957, this island group marked the site of an 8.6 magnitude earthquake. This was just the beginning, as the earthquake triggered a tsunami that not only impacted Alaska, but also Hawaii, where damage was reportedly even worse. Destroying almost 80 houses, Hawaii took a hit estimated to cost the state over $5 million, which would be about 10 times more when adjusted for inflation. The earthquake that started it all remains one of the largest on record, but it wasn't among the deadliest. While a pilot and a photographer indirectly died trying to capture the destruction, neither the earthquake nor the tsunami claimed any lives. Air France Flight 358. On August 2, 2005, 297 passengers and 12 crew members boarded a plane departing Paris, France.
The landing seemed to be a bit fast, but you know, we landed, so we seemed quite content with that. And then all hell broke loose because obviously the plane overshot the runway.
The flight reached its destination of Ontario, Canada, but due to harsh weather conditions, the plane overshot the runway by roughly 300 meters. Eventually hitting Etobicoke Creek, the aircraft caught fire, with most of the plane's main body section burning to a crisp.
It was apparently a passenger aircraft. Rescue vehicles rushed to the scene. It's in a wooded area, as you can see, near Highway 401. This is Canada's busiest highway.
Judging from the aftermath, one might assume nobody could have walked away alive. In what many outlets described as a miracle, there were 0 fatalities. That's not to say there weren't injuries, some more serious than others. Thanks to the efforts of the trained crew and good fortune, though, this story has a happier ending than anyone could have anticipated.
As Flight 358 landed, a sharp line of rain moved across the runway from north to south. It was driven by a sudden gust of wind of up to 38 miles per hour. The crew of the Air France jet had to deal with conditions that were much worse than they were expecting.
The Fukushima nuclear accident. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami didn't just lead to unspeakable damage and thousands of deaths.
Whole towns were washed off the map, leaving nothing behind. Over 100,000 people were evacuated.
This natural disaster caused the Fukushima nuclear accident, one of the worst incidents of its kind since Chernobyl. With the threat of radiation exposure, over 150,000 were evacuated. Cleanup efforts amounted to around 20 trillion yen, with numerous residents in the area choosing never to return.
The tsunami flooded the nuclear power plant. Result? Massive overheating, and reactors 1, 2, and 3 suffered meltdowns.
Despite the scale and lasting effects of this disaster, IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi claims no one died from radiation at Fukushima. Some called this into question, with several survivors reportedly getting cancer. One died from lung cancer, although it's unclear if this was radiation-related. With no deaths officially connected to the incident, Fukushima didn't quite reach Chernobyl level of notoriety.
The 2011 disaster left Fukushima changed forever. The biggest difference between what happened in Chernobyl and what happened in Fukushima is that the Japanese government believed the area has to be cleared.
Mauna Loa eruption. Mauna Loa isn't just the largest active volcano in Hawaii, it's the largest on Earth.
After a 4 decades-long slumber, the world's largest active volcano is now spewing molten lava and raining ash near the very top of Hawaii's Big Island.
As such, this is the last volcano you want to see erupt. After 38 years without incident, Mauna Loa inevitably blew its top on November 27, 2022. The eruption lasted about 2 weeks, finally ending on December 13th. With officials warning that lava could extend to public areas, many feared the worst.
It's sending these lava flows into completely uninhabited areas, and we will have ample warning before anything encroaches into a residential area.
Roughly 16 miles from the summit, it didn't put any people in harm's way. Public infrastructure damage reached approximately $1.5 million, although this was minimal compared to what costs could have been. With no deaths, Hawaii County Civil Defense Director Talmadge Magno called this, quote, probably the best situation that we could ask for.
Scientists say while everything is going according to script for now, there's obviously no saying what the future might bring.
US Airways Flight 1549. Few individuals have a better reputation for sticking the landing than Chelsea Sully Sullenberger.
It's a very vivid reminder to be here and to know that this is the place where it all had to happen.
US Airways Flight 1549 could have had a much deadlier outcome without Sullenberger and co-pilot Jeffrey Skiles at the helm. Departing from LaGuardia Airport, the Airbus A320 never arrived at its intended destinations. It didn't even depart from New York due to a flock of Canada geese.
It was intense, it was sudden. Just 100 seconds after takeoff, we were suddenly confronted with this ultimate challenge of a lifetime.
The collision left the engines out of commission, requiring an emergency landing. With their options limited, the pilots were forced to park the crashing aircraft on the Hudson River. Nearly half of the people on board would be hospitalized, 5 being seriously injured. Yet, all 155 individuals were rescued alive, with New York State Governor David Paterson dubbing this, quote, a miracle on the Hudson.
I was on pins and needles for 4 terrifying hours until finally that evening, still in the hospital being evaluated, I got the word that it was official.
Everyone was accounted for.
Everyone was safe. And only then could I feel the weight of the universe being lifted off my heart.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. The Apollo 13 rescue mission. By the end of the 1960s, the Apollo program had already landed on the moon twice. As such, Apollo 13 likely wouldn't have been met with much fanfare were it a successful mission.
We had a big problem on our hands.
Can I say again, please?
It was life-threatening.
Houston, we've had a problem.
It was not about landing on the moon in the right place. It was about survival.
Its place in the history books would be forever changed when an oxygen tank exploded in the service module. Aborting the mission, crew members James Lovell, John Swigert, and Fred Hayes set a course for home with assistance from Houston.
Here in Mission Control, we're now looking towards an alternate mission, swinging around the moon and using the lunar module power systems.
Oxygen was limited, as was power and essential resources. Even if the 3 astronauts made it back to Earth's orbit, there was still the matter of pulling off re-entry. With millions watching, the crew made a splashdown in the South Pacific, capping off what Lovell described as a successful failure.
The exploration of space has been hazardous adventure. The voyage of Apollo 13 dramatized its risks. The men of Apollo 13, by their poise and skill under the most intense kind of pressure, epitomized the character that accepts danger and surmounts it.
Do you have any other unbelievable survival stories? Let us know in the comments.